Hello, welcome everyone. Excellent. We've got almost everybody here. Folks are trickling in and we're going to get started right on time. So we'll keep this to a tight hour. We recognize this is a Friday night and it's beautiful weather out there. But we're really excited that you all could join us and hear about these fantastic alumni. So I'm going to start off today by introducing myself. My name is Ellen Mueller. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm director of the MFA program here at Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And welcome to our summer conference on furniture and social practice. I'm going to start out with a visual description of myself in case we have anybody participating tonight with low vision. I am a late 30s white woman with brown hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing like a light blue t-shirt and I have long white hoop earrings on, and I'm sitting in a studio office space. And tonight, before we dive in, I'm going to respectfully acknowledge the land that we're occupying here in Minneapolis. This is unceded territory, the ancestral homelands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe peoples. Gathering here, we pay our respects to those elders, both past and present. We acknowledge the grave harm of colonialism, and in particular, the erasure of both Indigenous and African identities, not only under slavery, but via racist laws that have and continue to segregate all people. We honor those who live and do live now at these intersections of identity and experience. And if you'd like to learn more about land acknowledgements, feel free to screenshot this slide. The first link there, native-land.ca, helps you learn which land you're on. And the second link at the US Department of Arts and Culture helps you formulate your own land acknowledgement if you're curious about that. So I can't go on without mentioning this is sponsored by the MCAD MFA program, which I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's a pretty awesome program. We are a community of makers, thinkers, researchers, and creative professionals, and we work in a mentor-based interdisciplinary environment. So if you're curious about us, check out the link on screen, mcad-mfa.com. And some tech support here. Your audio will be muted this evening. If you have any difficulties, feel free to email us at av_support@mcad.edu. And feel free to actively involve yourself tonight. You can leave comments, questions in the chat, and we'll bring those into the conversation. And also a recording will be made available after this event is done. So I have to thank my amazing faculty and staff at MCAD. First and foremost, Erin Morin. Erin is co-organizer of this conference, and she's been amazing to work with. And then also our incredible staff. We've got Seth Dalside with us tonight as our tech support. We've got Kylie Van Note and Nikki Motocolum, who's going to help process all of our payments for these amazing speakers. And then also to pay all of our fantastic speakers for this conference, we have incredible sponsors. We have the American Craft Council, we have Rockler, we have the Furniture Society, we have Tandem Made, shout out to Erin's company, Tandem Made. And then we've got Ripon and Blue Dot, who have all generously contributed to make sure that we are able to compensate our speakers. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And tonight, it's my honor to introduce our fantastic speakers. Tonight, I don't know if Chris is here. I can't see our list yet, but we might be joined by Chris Held. We've got Levi Murphy, Steve Listwan, Nick Rivers, sorry, I flipped, and Bin Shen. Each one will be giving about maybe 3 to 5 minutes of introduction of themselves. And then after that, we have some prepared questions that we'd like to ask them. And if there's time and you've got some great questions in the chat, we'll bring those into the conversation as well. But tonight we're going to start off by hearing from Steve. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then Steve, if you want to throw your stuff up on the screen, we'll get going.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let me just this and just let me know if you can see that now.
Yes, that looks great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, my name is Steve. I'm in Boston, Mass. I'm a graduate of the 13 class in furniture design. Yeah, just going to share a slideshow of what has happened since MCAD. So yeah, after I graduated in 13, I started a studio called Jaywalk Studio in Boston, Mass. And we didn't have a lot to do right off the bat. So what you're seeing here is a little toy that we made for Christmas our first year, and it'll come into play later on. But essentially, we made these little magnetic pucks, and you could play like tabletop soccer with them. And there they are. You can see branded and all different colors, and my nephew Leo testing them out and loving them. So yeah, that'll come into play a little bit later in terms of the trajectory of where our practice is now focused. But when we got into it, we were lucky. We had a lot of relationships in the Boston area, one of which was with a company called Ginkgo Bioworks, and we made a sort of quote unquote portable gallery for them and one of their artists in residence. And this was for a big event in downtown Boston. So everybody has like a container, and then you present your work in there. So we collaborated with an artist to essentially, just showcase her work, and also just keep in line with like the look and feel of the whole Hub Week. So yeah, this particular artist had textiles that were altered by bacteria, and they create these funky patterns. So we made this like psychedelic looking gallery for her, with projections, frames, and all sorts of interactive stuff. So yeah, I don't know, in terms of the trajectory coming out of my work at MCAD, it was this was wildly different, but we just wanted to embrace our relationships that we had back in the city of Boston. So in doing so, we out of the same building that Ginkgo Bioworks occupies in the seaport of Boston, Mass. We got linked up with Autodesk, the maker of AutoCAD and a bunch of other CAD-based software. And they have a new headquarters there, and we got pulled in to do a lot of 3 site-specific sculptural installations. So this was a parametric sculpture. Every panel, every joint on this is different. So it's a huge puzzle, but this is basically the welcome spot for their offices. So something to kind of embrace CAD technology and algorithmic design, and also welcome their guests into their space. And then this was in their conference area. So these 2 pillars in the main conference area, obviously sharing a lot of ideas. So we created these cells and wrapped around 2 of the columns, and then the cells kind of break at the top there. And the ideas, quote unquote, scattered to the, meant to evoke like the transferring of ideas and concepts. And you can see like the 2 of them kind of interplaying in the space there. And then in their kitchen and bar area where they go for a beer at the end of the day and to just unwind, we did this funky sculpture, supposed to evoke like a feeling of unsheathed wires. So like raw energy, and also like transferring ideas and things like that. And I don't know, we were gaining traction back here because of this. We had a lot of hardworking interns from local schools. And this was actually like 3 a.m. because the offices were active. So we gained a lot of trust and a lot of word of mouth because we were grinding, and a lot of that has to do with the mentality that came out of MCAD, like spending countless hours in the studio. It carried over to Jaywalk, this was a cool project. These are benches that were designed originally by an architectural firm here, Haller and Yoon, and then we kind of took over and we iterated on the design a little bit and made it a little bit easier to manufacture. But these benches are really cool. They're made of 2 pieces of plastic put together using binding posts, a little vinyl color pop attached to them, and they're dispersed around the globe from a company called Street Lab based out of New York City. And yeah, just libraries and schools across the globe will buy these and have like pop-up library sessions in the summer, so kids and parents can come out, play, read, and socialize. So that's been a huge thing for JWalk. That's one of our ongoing projects with Sandoval, the founder of Street Lab, and one thing that we really love producing for obvious reasons. And then, yeah, continuing with the connections, we just made more and more connections. This was another one from the Autodesk, jumping off the work that we did in their headquarters. They sponsored this at the Children's Museum in Boston, and we designed and fabricated some funky dinosaurs to embrace digital fabrication. And so all of these are made out of laser cut parts, cardboard. And the coolest part about this project was the kids part of it. Like, they could come to the museum, see the dinosaurs, get inspired, and go upstairs and actually laser cut their own dinosaurs and then color them in and take them home. And seeing that was really, really cool. The reaction was very, very positive. And then a lot of what we've done at JWalk is in carrying over with the inclusive approach is just collaborating with artists. This is a local artist, Yuwen, and we did an installation for her in Chinatown here in Boston. She wanted I think it was 35 custom lanterns. So this is us kind of getting the basics down, and then this is the installation that took place. And so we took her content, wrapped the lanterns. All the lanterns are like different shapes, obviously, and figured out all the engineering and how to do that live in downtown, which was a trip. And this us installing it. And then going back to the, it's kind of a surprise, but this goes back to the toy that we designed. So the plastic that we used originally for that toy, the salesperson that came through and thanked us for our big order of plastic, introduced us to our one of our best clients, I would say, and a total curveball for us, which has been making bespoke medical surgical simulation tools. And yeah, it came out of left field, but it's something that we're super passionate about moving forward. It embodies everything that I've worked on, including MCAD and everything in my undergraduate, but in a new funky way. So we worked really hard on this simulator for Abbott Laboratories, and it's for surgeons just to practice on before they go to live patient care. And we got a little PG-13 content there that I blocked out. It's just a little, so they actually install a pig's heart into this thing and do live surgeries on it. So it's wild. It's something that I never thought I would be doing, but it's something that I'm super passionate about moving forward. And it just shows how different the work, or how many facets work can take from what we learn over at MCAD. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Next up, we've got Nick.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm not that polished. That was very good. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for having me, putting this on. It's pretty cool. Let's see. So yeah, my name is Nick. I'm a 30 late 30s white male, he him pronouns, and I graduated 2016. I was actually let's see if I can, probably the easiest thing for me to do is just It's okay. Is my screen shared now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So probably the easiest thing to do is just like show my Instagram. Oops. And yeah, I went to MCAD. I kind of started as what I like to call like a crappy mixed media painter. I somehow got in by that, and then immediately wanted to do like sculpture, and so I actually worked at, I think I saw Brad as one of the people participating. Brad Jerka was my mentor in the program, and yeah, it was good. I realized now that, like, you know, I was very interested in the conceptual elements in graduate school, but also I think I maybe struggled with like how to put that out into the real world. And so this is like me scrolling through graduate school time here. You know, I was when I first kind of started, I was really interested in like that intersection between where an object essentially is in relationship with a human, like, and so static objects I wasn't super excited about. And so I did a couple of funky things, was really interested in work intention, objects that were kind of precarious. Like looking back now, you know, it's very tumultuous times. And I think, you know, my practice kind of evolved towards the end, where I when I had started graduate school, I really wanted to, I kind of had this dream that I was going to do like what I was calling architectural interventions, which is essentially like facades on a building, you know, or like objects that get put inside of a building. And I didn't want to go to school for architecture, so instead I got my MFA. And when I graduated, yeah, so this is kind of now like leading up to when I graduated, I wound up working, I'm trying to think, I got a job at Atomic Props as a scenic prop maker, and did that for a little bit. And then after that, I went to a science museum. I was working as a fabricator at the Science Museum. After that, where did I go? I went to Industrial Artisans, which is he's still kind of a good friend of mine. He's a metal worker doing fabrication, and then wound up at Target. And there's other, you know, MCAD alums who have wound up at Target, and their scenic prop photo studio, whatever. And that was an awesome experience for me, because I realized that I never wanted to work for anyone ever again. And that was kind of a defining moment. I was tired of making other people's things. I also realized that I wasn't very good at just like being a cog in the wheel anymore at like mid-30s. And so I was kind of at a crisis point where I knew I either needed to go and like get a general contractor's license, or I needed to get a shop of my own. And an opportunity came up. I was able to purchase a shop with quite a bit of equipment in Northeast Minneapolis. The previous shop was like a picture of the shop fairly early on when I bought it. Yeah, it was called Blade Cutters. I didn't really like the name. I still really don't. I renamed it to Northeast Blade Cutters, so that if there was any issues with the previous owner, they couldn't come after me, but they could also find me if they liked me and liked the previous work. And anyways, I just sort of bought that shop and kind of went along my way. The shop had a 5x10 Como CNC, so it was a pretty heavy duty CNC router and a couple of you know, nice table saw, nice equipment, and I just started making stuff. Where I kind of say it's sort of gotten to now is I do about a third of custom cabinetry, a third like weird fabrication, whether it be for like retail spaces or yeah, it's been kind of all over the board. And then the other sort of third is just running the CNC and literally cutting parts. And so, you know, I mean, there's pictures here, weird tables. This was for a men's clothing store in the Galleria. You know, this was a chair that my wife wanted me to make, and you know, and then we've made a couple other pieces like that. That's me doing cold water therapy, which is very, very useful. But you know, it's doing cabinets is kind of become what a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, and in some ways, like I kind of got pushed out into the world, realizing that well, essentially, I took on debt, and I've got a, you know, small business loan, so it's like if we want to eat, I'm gonna take whatever work has to be there, and so, you know, like obviously the Instagram stuff is sort of the more fun things, but there's also a lot of just like, you know, making cabinets that I would not want to be in my house whatsoever. Like this is a beautiful piece, and the whole kitchen was a really nice kitchen. But you know, is it my aesthetic? No. But you know, that's in some ways I think is kind of the, you know, more what being a maker in the world is about. So, you know, for me, it's kind of been a blend of getting to do things that I really like, and then also taking on a lot of projects that maybe I don't. So, yeah, I mean, people can take a look at my website if they're interested in more, but that's pretty much it.
That's great. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
And feel free for both Nick and Steve, if you have a URL or Instagram link that you want to put in the chat, go
Sure.
for it. Don't hesitate.
Okay. Yeah.
And now next is Bin.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Thanks, Alan and Aaron, for inviting me to be here. I'm really excited to be here. And my name is Bin Shen. Short description of myself is I'm an Asian woman. I'm in my late 20s, and I have black hair, black eye, and black circle glasses with me. I'm in my apartment, and I live in Minneapolis. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, 1 sec. Looks good right there.
Looks good.
Okay. So first picture is me with my furniture, and currently right now I work in the MCAD 3D shop as shop technician. I probably worked with you guys before, some of them, and I besides that continue work with my furniture studio practice, and I do some fabrication for shops, and occasionally I will do some commissions for people and for other stuff. So this one of my projects I designed, I made 2018 on my graduation show. I came to US from China, and before that I have no experience of making stuff, and I came here, started learning everything. And after 2 years, I start have a little bit about my directions, and then I want to make functions furnitures, but I also have motif but also could be good in a small space living situation, just like me right now. I still live in a small space. So this rock chair is, it can be a rocks, but when you put it down, but when your friends or students come over, you can pull it out and have a chair function, and also make it easier to disappear too. I really like the between functions that are easy to switch. That's what I'm looking for. And also, I don't want to add too much effort for people when they switch to another function, kind of like that. And then this is the multifunction desk. I'm still using it right now, from 2-3 years ago. So this desk have both functions. It's similar things, a 2-in-1, and it has lighting, has a built-in wire charging system, and it works great. And then Erin taught a class called Advanced Materials. So I was in that class, really happy to learn about fiberglass. And I feel like that material just gives me 100% freedom on shaping and also on appearance. So I got ideation from biology. So I make this really funky looking and also whimsical looking stool. It's super light. And after that, I make this fiberglass bench. When you flip, it can become a magazine rack. And then I like it how light it is, so you can drag it around or bring it with you, and you can sit on it and do some readings. I really like my furniture be playful and also be human designed, to consider about what's users experience and what my objects can bring to them. And I also do some home decor just to make some extra fortunes besides making furniture. And then as a shop technician, we made a lot of projects for shop users. They're like from entry level or new for making. And also there are some advanced people like a faculty or some professor come in their shop too. So I make this TIG welding box. So it's really, I think it's a ready to go kit for some people that don't know too much about TIG welding. So I like to show them how they can assemble it and even show some numbers of how to safely operate the machine. And also on the bottom, I organize it really well by colors and size. So as a foreigner student, when I just came to MCAD, I don't even know what's tungsten called or what's all the parts called. So I really like to make something that could be have some education inside, so I can push, I kind of like push over, kind of push for self-learning too. You don't have to ask a simple question for a shop staff. You can just learn by yourself, and then you're ready to do your projects. And now I'm currently working on a door that for shops too. It's a sliding door for standing booth. I think I want, because we're trying to build a shop that's inclusive, welcoming, and then for everybody. So if you're new to shop, I want this piece to bring you some curiosity or interesting, see, oh, what's in that room. And then once you learn about standing, about those standards and have experience with it, you can tie your experience with the store or bring some joy experience for the shop users. That's what we're trying to do. And the last, as a maker, I really enjoy making stuff for myself, for the loved ones, and also for my babies. So I made them like balls, bed, and even a step stool they can watch outside. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for everyone.
Awesome. I love that you closed with your cats, Bin. They're
Thank you.
adorable.
Yeah.
Great. Well, next up we have Levi.
Hello, everybody. Unfortunately, I don't have any images because I'm having some Dropbox issues, but I'll just kind of explain my pathway since MCAD, I guess. So I graduated in 2011. I identify as male. I'm white guy, early 40s. I'm sitting in a very blank apartment at the moment. I moved to New York pretty much immediately after I graduated in 2011, and it was kind of on a whim. I actually went to MCAD previously, 10 years previous, and did my undergrad there. And then I actually worked at MCAD for like 8 years as a facilities carpenter. So I moved to New York. I had some friends that had been here since 2001. They had a pretty successful graphic design business. They needed a new office suite of desks and kind of a funky thing. So they were like, come out for a month. And I had a couple old MCAD buddies that hosted me and let me use their studios. And then it just kind of evolved. And they were like, here's another project, here's another project. And so I guess I was like, I guess I'm moving to Brooklyn. So, and it's just kind of been an adventure since then. You know, I've probably had 3 different studios. I got rid of a studio for a while. They've pretty much all been shared shops, and I kind of like, not like makerspace shared shops, but there's only 1 or 2 other people doing things, and, you know, everybody helps each other. And I kind of like that community aspect of it. And we all kind of hire each other for different jobs. and it's kind of grown since then. I've pretty much just been bouncing around as a freelancer between, you know, art handling, art fabrication, art installation, doing furniture projects. A lot of it is collaborating with people to do other things. There's been probably rare opportunities that I actually just get to make stuff for fun, I guess. And a lot of that's facilitated by the next speaker, Chris, and his push to like bring a bunch of us weirdos together and show our stuff, even though we're all like stuck in our studios all the time. So I don't know. Yeah, it's been an adventure trying to be a small business person, being a freelancer, towing a line between like doing art related stuff and just general sort of like building carpentry kind of things. I actually took a hiatus for 3 years and worked for the sculptor Sarah Oppenheimer, and her studio is like one of her 2 or 3 go-to people. She runs a very small studio. It's very architecture sort of driven, which I have always been interested in, but never been able to dabble in. So I learned a lot of skills about, you know, organizing files and communication and CAD and dealing with museums and dealing with huge installs with lots of moving parts. And so that was a great experience. And then at some point I was like, no, I need to be back in the studio. So I got set up again in a new studio with a couple old MCAD alums that I hadn't been connected to in a while. And we've been doing that for 5 or 6 years. And we've been doing the same thing where we all hire each other to do different things. I've only been a more organized sort of studio for the last 2 years, I guess. Currently I have an intern from Pratt's industrial design program, and Pratt's actually a 15-minute walk from my studio, so it feels very MCAD Minneapolis style. I've hired another guy for the next few months who studied architecture, but only does photography now, but also knows how to build things, and he's an amazing person. Just because I've been flooded with work, and it's cabinet making, like Nick was talking about, that it's just, everyone's been stuck at home for 1.5 years. They want to remodel their houses. The contracting world's like totally swamped. I've managed to forge 2 good relationships within the interior designers, and they have hired me. I mean, I think I'm on my 6th or 7th project with one of them. I'm on like my 5th project with another one. So I've kind of, it's something that I've been looking for, but it just came in a weird way that I've been able to like locally sort of branch out and forge these relationships and really have a good working relationship with a few people that I really like. And it's sort of grown from there. And right now I have way too much work and I'm trying to get it done. And I don't know, it's been good. I mean, I've done other things like exhibition design with a bunch of other people for this thing called Dimensions of Citizenship, which was part of the Architecture Biennale in 2018 in Venice. So we were at the US Pavilion. The whole thing was like different sort of scales of interacting with communities in the world and each other and architecture and all kinds of things. So that was a great experience. But yeah, now I'm still just trying to make stuff. So I think that's probably enough time for me. So thank you.
Thanks, Levi. That was great. Cool. Well, next up we have Chris. Chris, I'm so glad you're here tonight. I should ask, do you want to share anything on the screen, or what do you think?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. So feel free to go for it. I think we've got you marked as a co-host, or if we don't, Seth, if you want to make Chris a co-host so he can screen share. There it is. I see it.
Working. Yeah.
Nice.
So we can kind of move around between my Instagram and a couple of websites, but yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to talk. He, him pronouns. And as far as the way I look, middle-aged white guy, cuts his own hair. So if that gives you a visual. Anyhow, so I graduated. I went to NCAD for my MFA between 2008, 2010. Had Tom Oliphant as my mentor. It was good to see her tonight. And yeah, after that, I guess I'll just walk through what I've done since then. So after that, I spent some time in Berlin at an artist residency, about 4 months there before moving back to Oregon, where I had gone to undergrad. I had come to MCAD and had a design practice started called Von Tundra with a few other guys. And we kept working on projects, furniture design, interior design, design build kind of stuff. We did some art projects out in the desert around Joshua Tree. And we kept that going until about 2013. And then decided to kind of dissolve the studio. My partner moved down to California, and I moved out to New York. My brother was here. So that made sense as the next spot to try. And when I arrived, I had been lucky enough to ask a friend to ride with me, and she knew one person in all of New York City, and that person worked at Blue Man Group. And I had pizza with them one night and ended up working there for 5 years. And that was a nice run. I worked in the special effects department. We did some theater lobbies in Las Vegas and Boston. And, we built a lot of stage props and instruments and, a lot of kinetic stuff. So I learned a lot there, and worked with some great people who I've continued to stay in touch with, and we've kind of circled back to do some work together ultimately. But what happened, Blue Man Group essentially got bought, and they were dissolved by a venture capitalist firm. And they, I think, still have some theater activity, but they're all independent businesses now. They're not under one umbrella. And so when I was laid off there, I took another kind of transitional hiatus and did an art residency in the Czech Republic. And spent a couple months kind of kicking around there. That was after, 6 or 7 months of severance. And then, wasn't really sure what to do next. So I had a buddy who was working at art handling firm. And so I worked in there with him, and it was pretty much the worst job I ever had. And I think my 40-some-year-old body just wasn't really up for hucking plywood all day, starting at 7 a.m. And so I decided to go back into the independent, design studio business, and which I had been kind of avoiding doing because it had been pretty difficult in Portland. And but New York's been kind of a different game, and I'm at a different place, and so the work's been, there's more avenues for it anyway. Which I think is also kind of the difference between, the early 2000s and now. It's the design scene has kind of changed And in the mix there, I should probably say that when I got to New York about a year or so afterwards in 2015, I started, along with my friend Lydia Cambron, we started this design exhibition called JONALDDUDD, which essentially, rooted in the fact that I was making one-off furniture, and I just didn't see a lot of that. I knew a lot of people that were doing that, but I didn't see that represented during Design Week in New York City. I kind of felt like the Design Week here was a little bit commercial, and I was looking at stuff, when I was in grad school, I was looking at the stuff overseas, online, and I'm feeling pretty excited by the freedom that a lot of these designers had to show their work and to have it be, kind of part of the conversation. And so we wanted to create an avenue for people to do that at Design Week here. And that's been, pretty successful. We've had some bumps in the road along the way, but and it's a scrappy show that we pretty much, just make happen just between the two of us. And, Levi's helped out a lot, along with Pat Carmody and, some other MCAD alum that have been pretty heavily involved. And, we pull it together year to year. We're going to do another one this year. It's going to be in November, along with ICFF and Wanted Design Fair, some other stuff. So, trying to, create a platform for other people, and people have responded really well to it. And so that's, as long as there's people that want to show, and as long as we have the energy to do it, we'll keep doing it. And then my own work, the studio I started called Nice Condo has been, I put out a couple collections, I guess, if you want to call them that. There's small groups of work that I've been able to do in my studio. And I think what's become important to me with this work, or what I've found kind of a love for and interest in, is creating these kind of contexts for the work to live in. Is the pieces individually, I think are pretty understated formally, and the context kind of brings them to life. And it's like it's something in here I'm still figuring out, but it's something that I feel like rounds out the expression that I'm after, and kind of rolls in some humor that, like, in a stare kind of object like this isn't really able to put together wholly. So this was some work that I did. So it's spoof stuff. There's just like the graphic design stuff, and I think I've worked to not be a fabricator, even though that's often what I am hired to do. But I'm always trying to hone my practice in a way that has people seeking me out for exactly what I want to be doing, which is kind of more custom design and build, and also a lot of designing my own stuff and producing it. So that's kind of what I'm after. There's some graphic design work mixed in that I'm kind of self-taught at, but I feel like is also rounds out the expression that I'm after, and has this resonance with the furniture formally that I appreciate. I'm trying to dig a little deeper into that and the relationship between those two mediums. And then more recently, I've started working, like I said, that I worked at Blue Man Group for a while, and some people that I worked with there that also, found the end of the road at that place. We've come together to form another company called Def Lab, DEFLAB, and we're able to, as a collective, kind of take on larger scope and scale projects. So we did this. This is my quarantine project. So about a year and a half ago, we started working on this candy store in Las Vegas called Rocket Fizz. It's inside this it's like experiential mall called Area 15. And so this is an existing, national chain called Rocket Fizz, and their stores are, like fairly, I guess, down market, for lack of a better term, in their build out, at least, in their presentation. And this was kind of an opportunity for them to step into this other higher budget space, and because they had the shared funding with Area 15, and so we were able to produce some interactive and kinetic elements in here, along with this like big rocket console. So we went with kind of this 1970s NASA theme, and kept it kind of a little austere, like a Nike store, and just displayed a lot of candy in there and a lot of weird toys. So that's it. I mean, I've done some branding work too, just to wrap things up and hand it over. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris. That was great. Wonderful. So I've got like 3 prepared questions for our alumni today. But if anybody has anything that you want to drop in the chat, or even questions, comments, anything like that, feel free. And speaking of furniture alumni, I also want to acknowledge George Mahoney is here. Hey, George. So it's great to have all this support. Yeah, exactly. So I'll start off with a prepared question. The first one is, what do you wish you could tell yourself when you were a student? Which is kind of a fun question. So feel free, jump in. There's no order here. Any hot tips or tricks or anything like that?
Oh, I'll go, I guess. I was thinking about it earlier, and the thing that kept springing to mind was just diversify more and experiment more. I came in to the MCAD, the MFA program, as like a proper furniture designer and maker, making mostly like wood and metal based furniture. And for almost the 2 years, I centered on those materials, and I explored a little bit, but I wish I chose some different avenues and different materials, different mediums that I wasn't too comfortable in while I was there, because it's having a business afterwards. It's a little difficult to do it on the fly. That medical simulation stuff aside, that was the exception to the rule, because the medical companies that we've been working with have the time and the budget to allow us to sort of expand and explore our portfolio of things that we can offer. But if I were to do it over, I would say, yeah, just go nuts with exploring different mediums, materials. Obviously, being a multidisciplinary program, it was awesome, and sort of by osmosis, I got introduced to different things like graphic design and photography and sculpture and things like that. But just as a maker, I wish I experimented with more materials and things like that. But
nice. That's great. Anybody else?
I think if I were students, I wish I'd tell myself to open up more, to talk to more artists and know more artists, join more arts events. Sometimes I give myself excuse, okay, I'm busy, I'm making stuff, but actually I feel like that will benefit myself if I go out to see more people. And I think the other things I want to tell myself, if I was students, I wish I know more about photography. So after that, I started to record, recording my making process. But sometimes I feel like I have lack of that skills. I just pick up to learning it during pandemic. But still, yeah, if I was students, I will have great studio and everything. So yeah, that's what I want to learn.
That's great advice. Thanks, Binbin. Anyone else?
I guess I feel like when I was a student, I was trying to find like an answer or like a formula to do things or whatever. And just like as things go on, there's no right way to do things. And I feel like you get locked into that when you have these very like physical things, and there's like joinery and procedures and like code and like how all these things are put together. But ultimately, like there's so many more ways to do things. You just have to allow yourself to explore and like and think differently, and just don't get stuck trying to find the one answer for everything, I guess.
Nice. No, that's great advice. Awesome. I don't know if Nick or Chris, do you have any advice or something?
I think I got caught up a lot in like what is the why of like why I was doing things. I think that's kind of a symptom of school in general, and I think it took me like a couple of years of decompression or something after that. But I would say like that, you know, that would be one thing I would wish I could have said was like, man, care about why. Don't worry so much about, you know, how it sounds to other people why you're doing the things you're doing, to kind of let go of that. And, you know, also like not looking for so much validation from others, I think is can just really be a issue. I think like since graduate school and just going off on my own now, but you're still looking, you get validation out in the world, but it's just under a different lens, which I think is good.
Cool. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, that decompression from the MFA experience, that resonates with me. And don't get too hung up in the why. I think you kind of figure that out as you go. But I think one of the things that has kind of brought me a little bit of solace in learning over the years is that I don't have to separate the my interest in a creative pursuit from making money. I don't have to choose one or the other. That as soon as once I started to understand and like actually believe that I could have both, that I could be an artist and I could also you know, afford myself a reasonable living, then that became my reality. And that was, those two things seemed like I was sacrificing one or the other prior to that.
Nice. Thanks. That's a lot of good advice for future students to mull over and think about. So, all right, our second question is, what is the biggest surprise that you encountered as a working artist post-graduation? Anyone have something that pops to mind?
Clients suck.
Clients do suck.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I think ultimately, like the more you do this, the more you get to choose, right? Like hopefully, as you put more things out into the world, you start to funnel yourself towards the people that you want to work with. But when you're first starting out, I mean, and I'm still kind of navigating through that, is again like that balance between needing to take the next job in order to pay, you know, for the studio and paying for this stuff, but then also recognizing like you just like learn a lot of hiccups. I mean, one of the things I've learned is that whenever possible, I would prefer to work with either a designer, a general contractor, project manager, you know, something, rather than a homeowner. That working directly with homeowners is just like almost always bad. So that and again, like that, some of that is just like with the work that I'm doing, where you're trying to make custom, you know, when I'm doing like built-ins and custom cabinetry and things like that, there's just a lot of like expectation and like preconceived notions of like what things are supposed to be, and so that's just it's a really interesting place to, I think I just never really understood how much that was going to come into play, that when you build objects for people, you know, it is different than building your object, right? Like getting to just build your object and then say, here you go, world, you should love it. Like, and of course, like that's like the ideal. And so obviously I have a lot more fun when people come to me and they're like, hey, I saw that project that you did. Can you do that? Can you do that again? Those usually go pretty well, but a lot of times the work where it's trying to muddle through somebody else's just understanding can be tricky, but not all people are bad. Anyways, that's all.
Thanks, Nick. We'll leave it at that hopeful note. Not all people are bad. That's great. How about anybody else? Biggest surprise you encountered after graduation? Anyone? Or no, there were no surprises.
Well, just expanding on what Nick was saying, I think when you're dealing with clients or designers or institutions, you have to learn how to manage people's expectations, because people come to the table with whatever their own idea is. You don't know where they're coming from, and there's so much communication and management of those aspects that it's like you just don't do it. You're just not prepared for it until it's there. And I'm still having a hard time with it. But it's all like, it's like communication skills, and then just trying to understand where other people are coming from and trying to bridge that gap. And I mean, I feel like essentially that's sort of where the designer's role is like you're bridging the gap between these like physical things, people's ideas, and trying to come to some sort of compromise and solution together. So that's how I am.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Anyone else want to take a stab at that one? Surprises?
Yeah, I'll go. One of the bigger surprises for me was just how the portfolio developed afterwards. And like finishing on the medical side of things, where our studio is heading in the future. It's super weird and something that I was not prepared for. Obviously, just a happenstance, like somebody coming in the door and introducing us to a client, but yeah, just spending time in an OR with surgeons, playing like Madonna and whatever else they listen to while they're doing surgery that makes them comfortable or in the zone, and seeing actual body parts being operated on. And never, in all my 2 years in Minneapolis, I did not see that coming, but it's something that we've embraced and something that we're passionate about moving forward. But I don't know, it's just cool to see where each person goes after their experience.
Can I ask you about that, Steve? Like I'm just curious, when you make a medical model like that and they're practicing on it, do they cut your work open? Like, do you have to keep replacing parts of it so new surgeons can do the same cuts?
A lot of times a surgeon or a procedure will happen on one model at the same or in the same location, and then they'll suture it back up and then do something else with it, not the same type of incision, but and then under the models there's always like different replacement parts that need to either be 3D printed or molded with silicone and other plastics. So it's a mixture of things. That's the one bad part about it. It's not really eco-friendly process. The silicones and everything that mimics human tissue are really like not recyclable. But it's kind of an approach away from using like cadavers and things, which are even worse environmentally and experientially for the surgeons. So yeah, it's something we're working towards in the future of just like how do you make it a better practice like that, like weaving in better replacement parts and more eco-friendly stuff. But
nice. And I'm seeing a question in the chat here. Julia Rose asks, I'm curious to know what each of the panelists' motivations were for pursuing an MFA. That's a really good question. Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Well, for me, it was jumping off the point that Nick and Levi were talking about. I worked for 7 years at a furniture design firm in Boston, and I was pretty sick of doing client-based work. We were lucky in that we had a lot of it, but I got kind of burnt out, and I wanted to afford myself 2 years to just essentially have a playground and find what I was passionate about and explore that, but also just to meet new people and challenge myself. It was a town that I wasn't familiar with, but yeah, just the people I met were amazing, and I wouldn't take the choice back for anything. It was a very solid experience, but mostly, yeah, just to get away from client-based work for a little while.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else want to pipe in on that one before we close up?
I think for myself, it's more like a life experience to me because I came from another country to here. It's more for education, but also more for just learning another culture. And the other motivation for me is at school, you can really try out a lot of different technique, a lot of different material that you might not have too much experience outside after that.
Nice. Thanks, Bin. Anyone else? Cool. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and a huge thank you to all of our panelists tonight, and thank you to all of you audience members. It's been great to have you all along for this really fun series of events. So thank you. Have a great night, everyone. See you later.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.